The stars were cold and endless, shining like silent eyes in the dark sky. A broken human ship floated between them, its metal body torn apart, fire scars burning across its surface. Inside, one man still breathed, his body weak, his mind heavy with pain, but his will unbroken. He had fought in a battle no human should have survived. A war against alien raiders, his crew gone, his ship destroyed, and yet he drifted on alone, waiting for death. But fate had other plans. A light appeared in the darkness, not the light of stars, but the glow of an alien vessel. Smooth silver skin, shaped like a living creature, wings spreading like glass. It moved closer, slow and careful, scanning the wreck, searching for life, and then it found him. The human felt a pull, gravity changing, machines wrapping around him, lifting him from the broken ship, carrying him into the heart of the alien vessel. He opened his eyes and saw her, an alien woman, young and radiant, her skin like pale silver, her eyes glowing with deep blue light, her face both strange and beautiful. She looked at him not as a prize, not as an enemy, but as a soul worth saving. "You are safe now," she whispered, her voice soft yet carrying power. "I am Princess Liara, younger daughter of the royal house. You are under my care." The human coughed, trying to speak, his voice dry. "Why save me? I am nothing to you." Liara shook her head. "You are not nothing. You are brave. You faced death. I saw the battle. You fought even when hope was gone. Such courage must not be lost." For the first time since the war began, the human felt something strange, a spark of hope. But Liara's face grew dark, her voice heavy with warning. "My people, my laws, they are not kind. There is something you must understand in our empire. The elder always claims the right of the younger. Everything a younger owns, everything a younger loves, belongs by law to the elder sister." The human frowned, confused. "What do you mean, everything?" Liara looked down, pain in her eyes. "Everything. Even you." The words hung heavy in the air. He did not understand at first, but slowly it sank in. She had saved him, she had brought him aboard, and by their ancient law he was now her possession. But because she was the younger sister, he would not remain hers for long. By law, by custom, by unbroken tradition, everything she touched, everything she claimed, would soon belong to her elder sister. The human's chest tightened, anger boiling. "I am not property. I do not belong to anyone." Liara's voice cracked. I know it is wrong. But the law is older than us, it rules our world. If my sister learns of you, she will take you, and once she takes you, no one can stop her." Silence filled the chamber, the hum of alien engines the only sound. The human stood weak, but his mind raced. He had escaped death only to face a prison of law he did not understand. Then it happened. The ship trembled, a signal flashing. Golden banners appeared on the screen. A royal code. Liara's eyes widened in fear. "She is here," she whispered. "My sister has arrived." The air grew colder. Guards filled the room, tall alien warriors in dark armor, their spears glowing with energy, their faces hard and merciless. The door opened, and a shadow fell across the chamber. Tall, commanding, her eyes sharper than blades, her presence like fire and steel. The elder sister stepped inside. Her name was Serenia, first daughter of the royal house, heir to the throne. She looked at the human not with kindness, not with pity, but with cold amusement. "So, little sister, you have found yourself a treasure." Serenia's voice cut through the silence, smooth and deadly. "And by law, what you have found belongs to me." The human met her gaze. Refusing to bow, he felt the weight of her power, the heat of her command, but his spirit did not break. Liara tried to speak. "Sister, please." "He's not a thing. He saved me. He is—" But Serenia raised a hand, silencing her. "Law is law," she said calmly. "And the law is clear. He belongs to me now." The chamber froze. Time itself seemed to hold its breath. The human stood between two alien sisters, one who had saved him, one who would claim him. And in that moment he realized his fight for survival had only just begun. The guards moved closer, ready to take him. Liara's eyes filled with sorrow. Serenia's lips curved into a cold smile, and the human clenched his fists, his heart burning with a single truth: he would never bow. Not to any law, not to any crown, not to any sister. The story of humanity's defiance was only beginning. The chamber was silent, but the silence was sharp, cutting like a blade. The elder sister Serenia stood tall, her cloak heavy with royal marks, her eyes burning like fire under ice. Every movement she made carried power. Every word she spoke felt like law itself. Before her, the human stood weak from wounds. Yet he refused to kneel. His chest rose with pride, his spirit stronger than his broken body. Serenya's gaze moved slowly, first over her younger sister Liara. Then over the strange man she smiled, but her smile held no warmth. It was the smile of a hunter who had found prey. "So this is what you guard so carefully?" "Liara," she said softly, her voice smooth but dangerous. "A human, fragile, lost, and yet you think him worth saving." Liara stepped forward, her silver hair glowing under the ship's lights. "He saved me, sister, when raiders attacked. He fought with courage, he risked everything. He is not an object. He is a person." But Serenya's eyes hardened. Her voice grew sharp. "Do not forget yourself, little sister. The law is older than you, older than me, older than our house itself. All that you hold belongs to me. And that includes him." The guards stepped closer, their weapons shining with energy, waiting for her command. The human felt the weight of their eyes, felt the chains of law tightening around him. But still he stood, his fists clenched, his voice strong. "I am not property," he said, his words echoing in the chamber. "No law, no crown, no empire will make me a slave." The guards froze for a moment, shocked that a weak, wounded human dared to speak so boldly. Liara's heart raced, fear in her eyes, but also pride, for she saw in him the same fire she had seen in the battle. Serenya tilted her head, studying him like a puzzle, her smile returning colder than before. "You speak with courage," she said, "but courage is nothing against law. In this empire, law decides truth, and the truth is simple. You are mine now." She raised her hand and the guards moved, their armor clashing, their steps heavy. The human's eyes narrowed, his body weak but his spirit unshaken. When the first guard reached out to grab him, the human moved, sudden and fierce. He slammed his fist into the guard's chest, throwing the warrior back. The second guard lunged, but the human twisted, using the alien's own weight to send him crashing to the floor. The chamber gasped, warriors shocked. Liara's lips parted in awe. This was no helpless man. This was a fighter, a survivor, a storm hidden inside fragile flesh. Serenya did not flinch. She did not shout, she only watched, her eyes bright with something strange, part anger, part curiosity, part admiration. When the guards rose again, she raised her hand, stopping them, her voice cutting through the tension. "Enough," she said. "Let him stand, let him speak. Let me see what fire burns inside this human." The human stood tall, his breath heavy, his wounds aching, but his eyes sharp. "You call me yours," he said. "But I do not belong to you, I do not belong to your law. I belong to no one but myself." For a long moment, Serenya said nothing. She only stared, silence pressing on all sides. Then she laughed, a sound low and cold, echoing like thunder in the chamber. "Interesting," she whispered. "Very interesting. Perhaps you are more than a pet. Perhaps you are a test." Liara rushed forward, her voice desperate. "Sister, please do not take him. Let him be free. He deserves more than chains." But Serenya turned her gaze on her younger sister, sharp and heavy. "Do not beg, Liara. It makes you weak. The law is not broken for a human. No matter how brave he appears, he belongs to me. And the Empire will see him as mine." She turned back to the human, her smile calm but deadly. "You will walk beside me, not as a guest, not as a friend, but as possession. Try to resist and you will suffer, obey, and perhaps you will live." The human's eyes narrowed, anger burning deep, but he said nothing, his silence stronger than words. The chamber's doors opened, more guards waiting, chains of light ready to bind him. Liara's hands trembled, her heart heavy with fear. She wanted to protect him, but the law wrapped around her as tightly as it did around him. As the guards stepped forward once more, Serenya's final words echoed. "Take him to my ship. Let the Empire see the human who dares defy me. Let them see how even fire bends to law." The human's fate hung in the air, his body surrounded, his spirit burning. Liara's eyes filled with sorrow and rage, and Serenya's cold smile marked the beginning of a battle far greater than anyone in that chamber could see. For in that moment the seeds of resistance were planted, and the Empire had unknowingly welcomed the storm of humanity into its heart. The human was taken, chains of light wrapped around his arms, glowing cold and heavy. The guards led him through long halls of silver walls, every alien eye turning to watch, whispers following like shadows. They had seen many prisoners, they had seen many slaves, but none had seen a human who walked tall even in chains. His head unbowed, his steps strong, In the heart of Serenya's flagship, the air was thick with power. Banners of the royal house hung high. Warriors stood in perfect lines, their armor shining, their eyes sharp. When the human entered, silence filled the hall, silence of shock, silence of curiosity. Some whispered. He defied the guards, others muttered. He spoke against Serenya, and the rumor spread like fire. A human who dared to fight the law. Serenya sat upon her high throne, her eyes locked on him, calm and cold. She saw the whispers, she saw the curiosity, and though her pride burned, another thought sparked inside her mind. Perhaps this human was not only property, perhaps he was a weapon, perhaps he was a mirror to test her people. But the human did not wait to be spoken to. His voice rose clear. Your chains may hold my body, but they will never hold my will. I am not yours, and I will never be yours. Gasps filled the hall. Warriors stepped back in disbelief. No one had ever spoken so to Serenya, not even her generals. The elder sister's smile returned, slow and sharp. Your words are fire, human, but fire burns out. Law does not. Liara stood at the edge of the hall, her heart torn between fear and pride. She saw her sister's eyes narrow, saw the guards grip their weapons, and yet she also saw the spark in the human's stance, the strength that refused to break. She whispered softly to herself, he cannot win alone, but perhaps he does not need to. Days passed, and the human was kept under guard, yet rumors grew with each passing hour. In training halls, soldiers spoke of him. He fought with bare hands and threw down 2 warriors. In council chambers, nobles whispered, what if the law cannot bend him? What if the empire cannot tame him? Even servants in the dark corridors repeated his words. Chains may hold my body, but not my will. Serenya watched all of this with careful eyes. At night, she walked the halls of her ship, thinking, calculating, this human, weak in flesh but strong in spirit. Could he be turned into a symbol, or would he become a spark that burned her rule? The human, though chained, did not stay silent. He spoke to guards. He spoke to servants. He asked them questions about their world, about their law, about their fears, and slowly, very slowly, some listened. One guard asked, why do you resist when you cannot win? The human answered, because if I bow once, I will bow forever, and no law can force my soul to bend. The guard said nothing, but his eyes lingered, troubled and unsure. Another servant asked, do all humans speak so? The human smiled. No, but every human can if given the chance. The whispers grew louder. Liara heard them when she walked among her people, her heart racing with both hope and fear. She met the human in secret, speaking through the shadows of the halls. You are changing them, she said softly. Your words spread faster than fire. The human shook his head. It is not my words, it is their hearts. They already knew the law was cruel. I only reminded them. Liara's eyes shone with quiet determination. If the council hears these whispers, if they see the people turning, they may question the law for the first time in history. The human's voice hardened. Then we must give them reason they cannot ignore. And so the seeds of rebellion grew, not in fire, not in battle, but in whispers, in hearts, in quiet defiance. But Serenya was no fool. She felt the tide shifting. She heard the same whispers. She saw the same troubled eyes. She summoned her generals, her voice sharp and steady. The human grows bold, the people grow restless. We must remind them of law, we must remind them of fear. A general bowed. Shall we silence him, my lady? Serenya paused. Her eyes narrowed, her mind sharp. No, she said coldly. Not yet. Killing him makes him a martyr, but breaking him, showing the empire that even his fire bends, that will end their doubts. And so she planned a trial by combat, public, brutal, where the human would face one of her strongest warriors. If he died, the whispers would end. If he lived, he would be scarred and broken, a trophy of her law. But Serenya miscalculated, for the more she planned to break him, the more the people prepared to watch him rise. And as the day of combat drew near, the empire itself seemed to hold its breath. Would the human bow, or would he burn brighter than ever before? Liara stood in silence, praying to stars that no longer answered. The human stood in his cell, his fists clenched, his heart steady, and Serenya stood upon her throne, her eyes filled with hunger. Hunger to see if this strange human was truly fire, or only ash waiting to fall. The storm was coming, and no law, no crown, no empire could stop it. The great council chamber of the empire was vast, carved from stone older than stars. Banners of gold and silver hung high above, and in the center burned a circle of firelight. Here laws were spoken, here kings had bowed, here. No voice was higher than tradition, and now, for the first time in living memory, a human stood in its center, chains of light around his wrists, eyes steady, back straight. The nobles filled the chamber, their robes heavy, their eyes sharp, each one sworn to guard the ancient laws. Their voices rose in whispers. Why bring him here? Why waste time on a human? What danger is one man? But the whispers did not hide their fear, for the human had already stirred the empire, already shaken their silent obedience. At the highest seat sat Serenia, her crown gleaming, her expression calm but unyielding. At her side stood Liara, younger sister, her face pale but her spirit strong, her hands trembling as she prepared to speak. A voice rang out, the elder of the council, his beard silver, his tone sharp. Princess Liara, you call us to question the law. You dare speak against the words carved in stone, against the traditions that bind us. Explain yourself. Liara stepped forward, her voice soft but clear. The law was written in war, to prevent chaos between sisters, but we are not in war. We are in peace. The law was made for another time, another world. It was never meant to decide the worth of a living soul. Gasps echoed through the chamber, nobles frowning, some nodding, others scowling. Serenia's lips curved into a cold smile. You speak boldly, little sister, but the law does not bend to your feelings. The law is what keeps our empire strong. If we break it once, we break everything. The human raised his head, his voice cutting through the noise. You speak of strength, but true strength is not in chains. True strength is in choice, in freedom. A law that turns love into ownership, that turns life into property, is not strength. It is fear. The chamber froze. Silence heavy. Never had a human spoken here. Never had a prisoner spoken so. And yet his words struck deep. Even in hearts hardened by centuries of rule, one noble rose, anger in his tone. Silence. You are not of us. You are not part of our law. The human turned his gaze on him, calm but fierce. Law that calls me a thing cannot silence me, for I was born free and no crown, no empire. No council can take that from me. The firelight flickered, shadows dancing across stone walls. Some nobles shifted uneasily, others whispered again. Liara's eyes shone with quiet hope, for she saw it, she heard it, the first cracks in the stone, the first doubt in ancient hearts. But Serenia leaned forward, her eyes sharp as blades. You speak as if your words matter, but words do not change law. Words do not change empires, power does, and the law is power. The human met her gaze without fear. Then you are weaker than you believe, for if power rests only on fear, it will fall the moment fear is gone. A murmur spread like thunder, nobles turning to each other, debating, questioning. The elder of the council struck his staff upon the floor, sparks rising. This is no simple matter. This law has guided us for ages. To question it is to question the foundation of our empire. Liara stepped closer, her voice trembling but strong. Then let us question it. Let us ask if law is meant to protect, or to enslave if it is meant to guide us forward, or chain us to the past if it can be changed once. Then perhaps it can be made stronger, truer. The chamber grew loud, voices clashing, some shouting in anger, others nodding in agreement. The council divided like never before. Serenia's face darkened, her hands tightening on her throne. She could feel control slipping. The whispers she had tried to silence now roaring in the very heart of the empire. But she was not done, not yet. She rose from her seat, her voice rising above all others. If the council doubts, let the empire decide. Let all see with their eyes. Let all witness the trial of this human. If he lives, perhaps his words carry weight. If he dies, his fire dies with him and the law remains unbroken. The chamber fell silent once more. Her words like iron. The nobles looked at one another, and slowly, reluctantly, many nodded. The trial by combat was law, it was tradition, and tradition could not be refused. Liara's heart sank, her hands trembling. Sister, you cannot... But Serenia silenced her with a single glance, sharp and cold. The human stood calm, his voice low but steady. Then let it be so. I will not run, I will not bow if trial is your way. Then I will face it, the council agreed. The date was set. The empire would gather. One man against an alien champion. One soul against a law written in stone. The fire circle burned brighter, as if the stars themselves leaned closer to watch. And as the human was led away, chains glowing head high, Liara whispered under her breath, her eyes filled with both fear and hope. This will not end him. This will begin him, and through him, it will begin us all. The nights aboard Serenya's flagship were long and heavy. The halls of silver glowed faintly with crystal light. Guards stood silent as statues, and yet in the quiet shadows whispers moved like rivers. The human sat alone in his cell, the chains of light locked tight, but his eyes still burned, his mind refusing to bend. Every day the guards came asking if he would kneel. Every day he answered the same, never. Liara visited in secret, slipping past watchful eyes. Her cloak drawn, her voice hushed. You cannot win, she whispered, her hands shaking. The trial will kill you. My sister chose her strongest champion, a warrior bred for battle. His body stronger, his reflexes faster. No human can stand against him. The human looked at her calmly, his voice low but firm. Then I will not fight as they expect. I cannot match their strength, but I can use what they do not have. I can think. I can turn their power against them. Liara studied him, fear and admiration in her eyes. You speak as though you already won. But even if you survive, even if you defeat her champion, the law still binds you, the council still obeys her. The human leaned closer, his words sharp. Then we must break the law itself. Not with swords, but with truth. Show them the law is weak. Show them it was never meant to rule forever. Liara's breath caught. The law is carved in stone, older than memory. How can you break what is eternal? The human's gaze hardened. Nothing is eternal. Every law has a beginning if it began once. It can end. For the first time, Liara dared to hope. Together they searched the archives, secret rooms filled with scrolls, old tablets carved in strange tongues. She led him through hidden halls of the flagship, past guards who saw only a princess walking with her possession. In those dusty chambers they found fragments, pieces of history forgotten. The law, once thought eternal, had been written in war, in a time when royal sisters fought each other for thrones. When blood stained the stars, it was made to stop them, to end rivalries, to keep the empire from tearing itself apart. But the war was long gone, the law remained. Turned from shield into chain, Liara touched the stone tablet with trembling fingers. It was never about property, it was about peace, and now it is used to enslave. The human's voice rose, quiet but powerful. Then we must show them. Let them see the truth with their own eyes. If the law was made by choice, it can be broken by choice, but even as hope grew in their secret hearts, Serenya's shadow spread across the empire. She prepared the trial by combat with cold precision. Messengers flew to every corner of the empire, summoning nobles, warriors, and commoners alike. The human who defied the law will fight, the banners declared. Come and see how the law cannot be broken. In the training halls, her chosen champion prepared, a giant warrior named Korath, his body built like living steel, his arms heavy with scars of war. He trained with weapons longer than the human's height, each strike breaking stone, each roar shaking the walls. Warriors whispered, no one can stand against Korath, not even a beast from the outer stars. But Serenya was not careless. She did not rely only on Korath's strength. She spread rumors through the empire, painting the human as proud, reckless, foolish. She told her council, if he dies, the people will see the danger of rebellion. If he wins, he will still remain mine, for the law will not change. Yet whispers escaped her grasp. Servants carried stories of the human's defiance. Soldiers spoke of his courage. Nobles muttered about his words. He speaks like a leader, some said. He fights like hope itself, others added. Liara felt the tide rising. She knew Serenya's plan was a trap, yet she also knew the people would watch. And if they saw the human stand, if they saw him resist even against impossible odds, the empire itself might begin to shift. The night before the trial, Liara returned to the human's cell, her eyes full of fear and fire. I have found the proof, she whispered, placing the tablet in his hands. The law is not eternal. It was written, it was chosen, and if it was chosen once, it can be unchosen. The human held the stone, tracing the ancient words with his fingers. This is what we needed. This is the weapon stronger than any blade, he said, his voice steady. But first I must survive tomorrow. First I must show them that chains cannot hold me, that even a human can defy an empire. Liara's voice broke. If you die, the human interrupted, his eyes burning. Then let my death be the spark that breaks their silence. But if I live, then I will tear the law apart. Outside, the Empire waited, the arenas built, the people gathering, the drums of trial already beating in the night. Serenia watched from her high throne, her eyes cold, her heart calm. To defy me is to die, she whispered to herself. And tomorrow, all will see. But in the shadows of that vast empire, a storm was already rising. One human, one princess, one forgotten truth, and one trial that would decide the fate of them all. The arena was vast, carved into the heart of a dying moon. Its walls rose high like mountains of black stone. Banners of the royal house hung heavy in the wind, and drums thundered like the beat of war itself. Thousands of voices filled the air, nobles in shining robes, soldiers in polished armor, commoners crowding every seat. All had come to witness the trial. All had come to see if the human's fire would burn or die. In the center stood the circle of combat, a ring of glowing stone, ancient symbols burning across its edge. Inside, no law ruled but survival. No crown mattered but victory. The gates opened, and the champion entered first. Korath, the warrior of Serenia, his body towering, his muscles thick with scars, his eyes blazing red with fury. In his hands he carried a blade as long as the human's body. Heavy and sharp, the crowd roared his name, chanting, stamping their feet. The ground itself shook with their voices. Then the other gate opened, and the human stepped into the light, no armor, no weapon, only simple chains unlocked from his wrists. He walked calm, his head high, his eyes sharp. The crowd fell into whispers, some mocking, some afraid. A man of flesh against a mountain of steel, they murmured. This will be no fight, this will be slaughter. High above, Serenia watched from her throne, her eyes cold and steady. At her side, Liara's hands clenched tight, her heart racing, her breath shallow. She whispered to herself, "Please do not fall, please. Not today." The horn sounded deep and sharp. The trial began. Korath moved first, fast and brutal, his massive blade cutting through the air, a strike meant to end the fight in one blow. The human leapt aside, the blade slammed into stone. Sparks flying, dust rising, the crowd gasped. For the human had survived the first strike. Again Korath attacked, his strength crushing, his speed terrifying. But the human moved with precision, never meeting strength with strength. Only speed with thought. Each strike missed. Each swing turned into a weakness. Each roar of fury became a step closer to mistake. The crowd began to shift, their laughter fading, their whispers turning into awe. He should be dead, they said, and yet he dances with death. The human studied every movement, every breath of his enemy. He saw how Korath's blade was too heavy, how his steps left cracks in the stone, how his rage blinded his aim, and then the human struck. Not with blade, not with brute force, but with timing. He ducked beneath a swing, slammed his shoulder into Korath's chest, and sent the giant stumbling back. The arena roared, shock and fire spreading through the crowd. A human, a fragile being of flesh, had moved the Empire's champion. Korath bellowed, his fury boiling. He charged with blind rage, his blade swinging wide. The human sidestepped, grabbed a fallen shard of stone and hurled it into the champion's face. Korath roared in pain, his vision clouded, his step broken. The human seized the moment, climbing onto his back, striking at his weak points. Every move fast, sharp, merciless. The giant fell to his knees, his blade dropping with a crash. The human stood before him, battered, bruised, blood on his lips, but his eyes burning brighter than fire itself. The arena erupted, voices clashing like storms, some cheering, some cursing, all unable to believe what they had seen. A human had brought down a warrior bred for war high above. Serenia's eyes narrowed, her lips tight, her fingers gripping her throne. This was not the ending she had promised. This was not the message she had planned. And yet the law bound her too. The trial had rules. If the champion fell, the victor lived. Liara's eyes filled with tears, her voice breaking into a whisper. He did it against all odds. He did it. The elder of the council rose, his voice trembling with disbelief. The trial is complete. The human stands victorious. His life is spared by law. The human raised his head, his voice carrying across the arena. You see me as property, you see me as weak. But today you saw truth, no chain, no law. No crown can hold a spirit that refuses to bow. The crowd roared, louder than the drums, louder than the banners. Some shouted his name. Others chanted freedom. The empire trembled, for the whispers had become shouts. The spark had become flame. But Serenia rose, her cloak sweeping behind her, her voice sharp as steel. "Do not forget," she thundered. "Law is law. The trial spares his life. But it does not free him. He remains mine by blood, by crown, by empire." The arena fell silent again, the fire of hope clashing with the weight of tradition. The human stood tall, his fists clenched, his eyes locked on Serenia. And though chains no longer bound his wrists, the law still chained his fate. The battle was won, but the war had only begun. The crowd's roar echoed across the stars, carrying with it a question no empire could silence forever. What is stronger, a law written in stone, or a will written in fire? The arena still trembled with echoes of the crowd, chants of freedom, shouts of disbelief, the dust of battle rising into the air like smoke. The human stood tall in the circle of glowing stone, bruised, bloodied, yet unbroken, his victory undeniable. His spirit burning brighter than any flame, Korath lay defeated, the champion of Serenia brought to his knees by one who should have been nothing more than prey. But even as the crowd roared, even as nobles whispered in shock, Serenia rose from her throne, her cloak heavy with the weight of law, her eyes sharp as cold steel. "Do not be deceived," she thundered, her voice carrying across the arena, silencing the voices of thousands. "He has won the trial, yes, his life is spared, yes. But the law does not change, he remains mine. His victory does not make him free. The empire does not bow to a human." The silence that followed was heavy, pressing, but beneath it stirred something restless, something dangerous. The people had seen the impossible. They had seen one man defy chains, defy strength, defy fear, and though the law still stood, their hearts no longer obeyed it fully. Liara stepped forward, her voice trembling but clear. "Sister, the trial is not the end. The trial proves what we already knew. He is more than property. He is a living soul, and the law that calls him otherwise is broken." Serenia's eyes narrowed, fire flashing. "You dare speak against the council, against tradition, against me?" But Liara did not bow. She lifted the stone tablet, the one she had uncovered in the hidden archives, her voice rising. This law was never eternal. It was born in war, created to end blood between sisters. It was not meant for peace. It was not meant to rule lives forever. And now it is used to enslave, to bind what should never be bound. Gasps spread through the chamber. Nobles shifting, guards glancing at each other. The human turned to the crowd, his voice cutting through the heavy silence. "You see, even your own law had a beginning. If it began, it can end. And if it ends, it will not weaken you, it will free you. A people strong enough to rule stars should not fear freedom. A people proud enough to carve empires should not hide behind chains." The words struck like thunder. In the stands, whispers grew, some nobles arguing, some soldiers murmuring, commoners raising their voices. The law was written. It was not born with us, they said. Then it can be unmade. Serenia's face hardened. Her pride burning, she stood before them, her voice sharp as a blade. "Without the law, sisters will fight again. Without the law, our empire will crumble. Tradition holds us together. Do not be fooled by human fire. It burns bright but dies fast." The human faced her, his eyes steady, his words calm but fierce. "Empires do not crumble because of freedom. They crumble because of fear. Fear is what weakens. Freedom is what strengthens. If you are afraid of choice, then perhaps your empire is already broken." The arena shook with the force of his words. The people cried out. The council argued, and for the first time in centuries, doubt struck at the foundation of the empire. The elder of the council rose, his voice heavy, his staff striking the ground. "The law is ancient, yes, but truth cannot be ignored. Perhaps it is time to choose again. Perhaps it is time to decide if chains are our strength, or if freedom is." The chamber erupted, voices clashing like storms, some for the law, some against. And through it all, Serenia stood silent, her eyes locked on the human, her heart a storm of fury and respect. She had tried to break him, yet he stood unbroken. She had tried to silence him, yet his voice had become louder than hers. At last she spoke, her voice low, heavy. "Very well, if the council wishes. Let the law be brought to judgment. Let it be tested as he was tested. Let the empire decide." The people roared, some in anger, some in triumph. But Liara's eyes filled with hope, for she knew the tide had turned, the chains had cracked, and nothing could stop the storm now. Days passed, debates raged, votes cast, and at last, the council declared the law was ended, abolished, struck from stone. No sister would own another. No life would be claimed by blood alone. The empire had changed, not by crown, not by blade, but by truth, by courage, by the fire of one human. The human stood before them once more, no chains on his wrists, no weight on his shoulders. He looked at Liara, her eyes shining with quiet victory. He looked at Serenia, her gaze sharp, but no longer filled with scorn. She stepped close, her voice low enough for only him to hear. Perhaps humanity is more dangerous than I thought, for you do not conquer with armies, you conquer with will, and will is harder to kill than steal. The human's answer was simple, steady. We do not seek to conquer, but we will never bow. And with those words, the empire stood changed forever. The stars burned brighter that night, as if the universe itself leaned closer to witness. The law was broken, the people freed, and a story was born. The story of one human who stood in chains and left as fire,